New this morning, Colorado has a new designation for one of its highways.
I-76 is now a Pollinator highway. Traffic anchor Jason Luber is here to explain what this all means.
Well, the Pollinator highway, it's basically what it sounds like. I mean, it's really an area that's full of pollinating insects.
Well, Colorado was called to Washington, D.C. back when the executive order was being considered. And we provided support for the executive order for pollinators along the highway.
So there was a presidential memorandum in 2014 signed by President Obama that encourages state and federal agencies to focus on supporting pollinators.
We've developed a partnership with CDOT, and we hatched a plan to try to designate I-76 as the first Colorado state pollinator highway.
We were looking for opportunities to create a pollinator highway, and I-76 was one that we decided might be a good candidate for it. It isn't a really long highway, but it has some open areas that gave us opportunity.
And we worked to do that at the state legislature, and that was a really successful measure. It was a bipartisan and unanimous measure that passed in 2017.
Hello, members. I stand in support, I rise in support of this resolution, as this is my highway that I drive to work every day, and I'll be playing this.
There was support from all levels of local government, within CDOT, the maintenance, the environmental, everybody was supportive.
It was something that the legislators could be really excited about. They were thrilled with the idea of protecting habitat along state roadways. We have over 9,000 miles of them, and there's great potential to improve what we're planting there.
This really put a focus on native seed mixes and ecological management, and Colorado took that on very seriously.
I'm Mike Banovich, landscape architect with the Colorado Department of Transportation. We are out at the Colorado Welcome Center near Julesburg, Colorado, observing our wildflower pollinator plantings from October.
I think it's really exciting to start having conversations about recognizing that roadsides are a natural resource, they're natural habitat, and that they can contribute to the health of the overall landscape. They play really important functional roles in keeping motorists safe, but they also play other functional roles for ecosystem health. They help filter water, they provide habitat for birds and for pollinators, they can provide links to natural heritage and natural beauty, seeing in them as a part of the natural landscape rather than something we need to control and we need to mow and create like a lawn.
So there's one other thing I think that highways can provide, and that is an area where there's slightly higher moisture than we get. With the runoff from the highway, that can support plant life along a corridor that might do better than it would 100 yards off the highway.
Native species do help hold the soil in place, and that is what I was referring to when I was talking about roadway resiliency, at keeping erosion from our infrastructure. So we want to have that vegetative cover on there so when the storms do come, that the soil stay in place.
I've been enjoying learning about plants like purple prairie clover, which is very prevalent out here and very, very beneficial for pollinating insects. The blue flax, which is just beautiful everywhere.
Insects, I just like to see as many as I can. Butterflies, monarchs, if we can get them.
Flashy moths that people might see would be some of the big sphinx moths, in particular one we call the white-line sphinx, and it may fly during the day, and then people call it a hummingbird moth.
I have a special fondness for bumblebees. Part of it is that they're like flying teddy bears, but I'm a plant nerd, and most of the plants I love wouldn't even be here without the services of animal pollinators. I mean, wind pollination can only do so much. I guess if I loved pine trees, I'd be set, but almost everything else requires animal pollinators to exist. Last I heard, Colorado has 946 species of bees and 233 species of butterflies. But even more than that, all the ecosystems that we see here in Colorado really do rely on these animals that make plant reproduction so much more efficient and effective. If you love a mountain meadow, or you love a prairie, or you love the canyon, and all the great wildlife that you see there, you wouldn't see those without pollinators.
It's really important because although honeybees are incredibly important crop pollinators, you really need a diversity of pollinators, not just for crop pollination, but also to support biodiversity in general, because all sorts of important pollinator species are needed to support plant pollination, wild plant pollination.
Having that highway have this long strip of food and shelter resources for these animals enables them to sort of find those pockets and then travel and go to the next pockets, which makes it possible for populations to expand and be more successful.
The Asclepias, or the milkweed, is another species that it was important to get into that mix. Because it does grow out here naturally, but also to support the monarch butterfly populations.
Of course, the monarchs are the reason for so many of these efforts out here.
They're fantastic. I just love, I think, the monarchs. So we're in a kind of a hybrid zone, but I love the monarch as kind of the driver here.
That's exactly why Lamar, Colorado was just named the Monarch City. You're looking at hundreds of monarch butterflies just floating around John Martin Reservoir State Park. The insects are making their way through the eastern plains as part of their migration. The butterflies travel nearly 3,000 miles to Mexico, where they will stay warm over the winter.
Planting these pollinator-friendly species is nothing but beneficial for whatever your interest is in the roadways that CDOT manages. So it's good for an ecological perspective. It promotes pollinators and insects that are beneficial to the wider environment as you move on up through the food chain and the ecosystem. It's great for promoting plant diversity and cutting back on noxious and non-native plant species.
We would be able to see almost a species shift, that you'd be seeing more flowering plants and less grasses. And that would be the goal, say, maybe in 10 years, of seeing that species shift of more forbs and less grass. Instead of right now, we've got it backwards. We've got more grasses than forbs. And with more forbs comes more pollinators, so that would be a good thing. Integrated roadside vegetation management is a management strategy that CDOT uses to help maintain roadsides. The main goals are to minimize mowing and to minimize spraying as much as possible throughout the zones with pollinators in mind.
And it's also good for aesthetic reasons. When people drive from out of state and they come into Colorado, if the first thing they see is diversity and abundance of wildflowers, then that's a good thing too. It kind of breaks up the monotony of driving on the interstate a little bit. Hopefully keeps people more aware and safer. So I think that there's a lot of positive benefits from doing this.
The new normal will be actually a more pleasant drive.
I really hope that in 10 years it will be a self-sustaining ecosystem along the fringes of the highway right-of-way and helping to connect ecosystems.
There'll be flowers, there'll be different colors. It won't be just a mowed lawn, and in Colorado where we're fairly dry, that lawn turns brown. It will be a more colorful drive, and hopefully we'll have beautiful butterflies to show for it.